So I'm grateful. Flowing from my heart is gratefulness. Hallelujah. All right. So we had the little reading, the dramatic reading from, we couldn't afford Morgan Freeman. So we got Morgan Not So Freeman. And we had him reading our text this morning to help us understand what God is really sharing with us. And I wanted to pull it out of Exodus chapters 1 and 2, because you need to understand what the enemy's plan is and his strategy is. So if we understand his plan and strategy, he will no longer have an advantage over us. The Bible says the enemy has an advantage over us because we're ignorant of his devices. So we have to no longer be ignorant of the enemy's device. We must understand his strategic plan to try to assault the people of God. But no weapon formed against us shall prosper. The enemy tried it. So in Exodus chapter 1, we open up with the reaccount of Joseph. And as Joseph made his deal with Pharaoh, he caused Pharaoh to be able to endure famine. And the family of Israel grew and grew until it became the nation of Israel. Isn't it something how God will take a family and pull out of that family a nation? Israel and his sons were in Egypt, and they flourished to the point where the Egyptians were intimidated at the level of growth that they saw. See, some of you won't get that until you get home. The enemy was intimidated by the level of growth that he saw from the people of God. So he wanted to attack the people of God. Every time you're growing, you need to be able to expect that there are going to be attacks. Maybe I'm in the wrong building. Maybe I need to preach this up the street. But the truth of the matter is, whenever God is doing something in your life, the enemy hones in on the growth and tries to kill it before you flourish. So Pharaoh is looking at this and he says, I don't know Joseph. He didn't know Joseph because the Pharaoh before the Pharaoh was the one who made the deal with Joseph. This Pharaoh that comes on the scene didn't know Joseph's God, intimidated by the growth. He didn't understand the move of God, so he wanted to kill it. So while Pharaoh is trying to kill it, he's telling the midwives, I need you to kill the newborn boys. The midwives came back and said, we can't kill them because, we try to kill them at birth. But the women are so strong that it makes it impossible, and they grow so quick, and they move so quick, they birth them so quick, we don't have a chance to kill them because of the strength of the people of God. The Bible says the more they afflicted, the faster and greater they grew. Some of y'all get upset when the devil is attacking you. But all the devil is doing is he added an accelerant to your growth. I wish I had some help in here today. Those attacks are merely an accelerant to accelerate what God is already doing in your life. Maybe it's somebody in here today that has experienced the attacks that the enemy is trying to take you out as you are growing. So Pharaoh says, y'all got to do something. Even if you got to grab those boys and toss them in the river. Because they are carrying something that I don't like. They're carrying the seed of potential. And I'm going to kill it before that seed has time to be planted and germinate. Do you know the enemy is always against your seed? Genesis chapter 3. I was perusing it. See, that's a big word, perusing it. I was perusing it and looking over Genesis chapter 3, as they already had Exodus in place. I was looking at Genesis chapter 3, and I remember what God told the enemy. He says, I will put enmity between you and the seed of man. So the enemy always is trying to attack your seed. I don't care if that seed is your child. I don't care if that seed is your business. I don't care if that seed is your tithe. I don't care if that seed is your offering. I don't care if that seed is your sacrifice. The enemy wants to get you to abort the seed before it has time to grow. So Pharaoh says, we got to get rid of the seed. We got to get rid of the seed because the seed is intimidating. If we get rid of the seed, then nothing can grow. If we terminate the seed, then the potential has no place to go. So Pharaoh becomes the Terminator. So we get to chapter 2, and in chapter 2 of Exodus, this husband and wife, they have a baby boy, and they haven't named him yet, and they hide him away, and the mother is taking care of the baby. And one day, they put the baby in the basket, said they're going to sail the baby down the Nile River. They make an ark. They make an ark of beaver wood, and they weave it. She weaves the basket because only a mother knows how to protect her baby when the baby is a baby. So the mother weaves the basket, and she pitches it with slime to seal it so that the baby is protected, so that there is no openings for the baby to drown, so that the baby could endure the trials. Can I tell you, God just dropped this in my spirit. Can I tell you, some mothers don't prepare their kids for anything these days. They don't really weave anything together. They don't take the time that it takes to prepare the kid to be thrown into the river. But this mother did. She took the time. She wove the basket. She pitched it with slime inside and out to make sure that it was watertight. That as she puts the baby in the basket, she sends the baby in the river. And in this river, you're good. In this river, that's just sound effects for me. And the baby's in the river. And in the basket, while adders and crocodiles are in there as well, no weapon. We have to trust that as we prepare our potential to go out into the world, that if we do it right, if we send it out right, it should perform what it needs to perform. She puts the baby in the basket is in the water, the water is in the Nile, and God allows the baby to drift down the Nile River to land at Pharaoh's house, the house of the Terminator. Pharaoh's own seed, his daughter, looks at the basket, and because she couldn't have a baby of her own, she adopts this child. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? How God knows how to orchestrate everything. This child to this woman at this time creates opportunity. Watch all the opportunities that it creates. It creates opportunity because she picks up the baby out the basket. Now she has the baby, and she calls his name Moses because he was drawn out of the water where other babies drowned in the water. You got to remember, Pharaoh's mandate was to toss all the boys in the water. She obeyed with a loophole. She put him in the water. He didn't say you couldn't put him in the basket. So the baby drifts down there, finds Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's daughter finds the baby, is in love with the baby, and says, I am going to take care of this child. Isn't it funny that when we prepare and do things the right way, how God will even make your enemies care for you? So here's what happens. So she gets the baby. She takes the baby to daddy. Daddy says, okay, we're going to fund the baby. We're going to make sure he's a prince of Egypt. We're going to make sure of all these things. But then she says, but because I did not birth him, I cannot nurse him. And he still needs to be nursed. So Moses' sister comes out of nowhere. I got somebody. Mama goes to get Moses' mother. Moses' mother is hired by Pharaoh's daughter to nurse her own baby. When you operate in the will of God, God will make your enemies your funders. God will cause them that wanted to kill you to keep you. Drawn out into the house of Pharaoh to be brought up. God saw potential. And God saw growth. But you know who else saw growth? The enemy. Because he wasn't going to stop there. You know, as Moses grew up in the house of Pharaoh, there's another opportunity the enemy tried to take him out. He tried to get him caught up in the system. Because one day, Moses was trying to protect somebody who was being mistreated to the point where the taskmaster and Moses got into a fight, and Moses killed the taskmaster who was abusing this person. So now he becomes a murderer, and now because he is no longer absolved from the law, because he might have been adopted, but he still was an Israelite. So though he was accepted, he wasn't. You ever been in a season where you felt both accepted and rejected at the same time by the same people? You could be at the same job feeling acceptance and rejection all at the same time, but God has a plan. Tell somebody God has a plan. God has a plan. God has a plan. You find out who you really are when the rubber meets the road. So he goes running. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here because I don't want them to get me because I'm too pretty to go to jail. That's how I feel. I always tell people, they're like, why don't you ever get it? I'm not going to ever get in trouble because I'm too pretty to go to jail. You ain't putting me in nobody's jail. I'm nobody's boyfriend. Trust it. Believe that. Trust that. Trust that. So you get there, right? He's running. He finds a new family, and now he's really walking with the children of God and the Israelites, and he is engrafted to this family, gets married, and finds himself on the backside of the wilderness, and he is caring for sheep and all of this, and one day he stumbles across a burning bush. And at this occurrence, after all he has been through, after the Terminator tried to terminate him on more than one occasion, he steps up and he hears something. He hears a crackling, a fire. He hears it, and he turns his eyes to see this bush. And this bush is burning but not being consumed. And he's finding it fancy. How can something be on fire but not be consumed? Because in his mind, anytime something is on fire, it must be consumed. It has to devour the thing that it caught fire to. And I'm reminded and encouraged that God keeps us like that. Though the fire is very visible, it's not very viable. Okay, you maybe let me try it over here. Though I can see the work of the fire, or I can see the vision of the fire didn't work. Some of us go through fire and we go through trials and tribulations. But you get so consumed with what the fire looks like, you haven't realized that the fire hasn't burnt you. I don't know who that's for. That's bonus. There's bonus material. You get that on the extended cut. But he turns his view to it. And then once he is focused on the bush that we call the burning bush, when he focuses on that, what God is doing, then God speaks. God did not speak while he wasn't focused. We're wondering sometimes, why is God so silent? It's because you're not focused on him. And if you could ever just focus on him, maybe you would hear more. Because we get focused on the wrong things. We're focused on the wrong people. We're focused on the wrong situations. But we're not focused on our assignment. How many times has distractions cost you movement? Anybody in here can relate to that? Sometimes distractions will cost you movement. And it costs you movement because you don't know what the steps are ordered. You don't know what steps are ordered because you're not hearing God. You're not hearing God because you're not focused. You're not focused because you're distracted. And the distractions cause you not to hear God. And because you don't hear God, there's no movement. See how there's a pattern? But if I could ever get back focused to God, then I can hear his words, follow his instructions, and move forward. God speaks out of it and says, take your shoes off. You are standing on holy ground. In other words, don't drag your unholy stuff into a holy place. You can't live in both worlds, saints. We live in a world, in a community where you straddle the fence, saved and unsaved. Depends on what time I catch you. Depends on where I catch you. And depends on who I catch you. It all lets me know that you're neither hot nor cold. You're trying to be both. And God is calling you to be holy. Remove your shoes, for the ground that you stand on now is holy ground. I know you've never been introduced to it before, but now that I'm introducing you to it, you have to be able to come out of those shoes and put your bare feet on this ground. Okay. I'm excited and I want to get it out, but I'm so excited that I don't know if it's going on. But right, let's see how it comes out. Just like last week I told you. Remember I told you that they tried to put the presence of God on the ark and they didn't want to carry it themselves, and that took the human contact from God. It's the same thing, right? If he stood because I know in the Hebrew that there was a removal of shoes, because shoes reminded you of everything you walked in. But shoes were always also a barrier between you standing really in holiness or standing in shoes that are standing on holiness. Are you willing to stand in holiness, or are you willing to stand in shoes that are standing on holiness? Oh, this is so good. It's so good. Because many of us will come to church because there's a layer between us and holiness. And we'll stand on holy ground if I can still cuss when I leave church. I'll stand on I can stand on holy ground because I'm really not touching holy ground because I'm in my shoes. And I'm still comfortable in these shoes. So these shoes are the layer in between me and God. So I can still lie, steal, and cheat and do everything else because I still got those shoes on. And as long as I'm wearing those shoes, I can never really experience holiness. But I can stand on holiness. I could be in the same place as holiness. But my feet, these shoes are the buffer in between. My shoes could be my tradition. The Bible says your traditions make the word of God of null effect. Because those traditional shoes you're wearing are stopping you from experiencing the move of God, the prophetic, powerful move of God. Because you are still in shoes you should have took off. You're still in shoes you should have took off at your wedding day. You still married trying to live single. So you feel like you could do everything you did as a single person, but you're not standing on business. So I'm going to still do everything and everybody I used to do because these shoes protect me. No, they don't. They stop you from really getting fully into the experience. There's one thing. Listen. Like when me and my wife go on vacation and there's a beach involved, my wife loves the beach. She'll take her socks and shoes off and walk along on the beach because she wants to feel the sand, right? Not the kid. I'll be in my gym shoes and socks. I'll pull them up extra high because I don't want any sand in between. You know what I'm saying? I just don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want that experience. But I'll walk with her because she's willing to touch the sand. She's willing to walk in the ground. I'm not. So I'll have my shoes on while she has her shoes off, and she'll walk down to the water. She'll roll her little pants legs up and put her feet in the water, and it's like that's so cute, baby. And I'll take pictures of her. Not me. I don't want that experience. And some of us come to church like that. You're barefoot and ready to move in God. You will shout. You will dance. But the person you came with, not them. Don't take all of that. You sweating your weave out, baby. Don't do all of that. Some of us come to church with our shoes on, with waders on, boots on, all the way up because we don't want to experience no real God. We just want to show up to church. But can I talk to the remnant in the room? That'll be like David. If you tell me I'm stripping for God, I'm stripping it all. I'm taking it all off. Socks, shoes, whatever I got to, because I need to immerse myself in God's presence. I know I'm just a little unorthodox today. Y'all pray for me. But I need you to see it. So take off your shoes. You stand on holy ground. Now God gives him instruction. I have heard the cries of my people, and I'm tired of hearing them. They've been crying too long, and now it's time for me to move. I need you, Pharaoh. I need you, Moses. You was drawn out. You lived in two worlds. You know how to speak in both languages. I need you to be able to do the ministry. Sometimes God will put you in a place for you to learn a language. Learn the lingo, learn a skill set. People always tell me, well, Pastor, why do I have to stay in this season? Why do I have to stay in this? Because there's a lesson that God needs to teach you while you're being afflicted. You're not being afflicted for no reason. It was good for me to be afflicted. What's the good? It's the lesson that I learned through my afflictions. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Some folk have afflicted me, and they taught me how to pray. I would not be able to pray as good as I pray if not for the afflictions, if not for the betrayals, not for the lies, not for that. I learned how to pray because I was forced into a position where I had no choice but to pray. And when you start praying and believing God and start trusting God at a whole nother level because you can't trust nobody else, God will show you things in your storm that you couldn't see when it was sunny out. So he tells him, I'm sending you back. He's like, I got to go back. I thought I escaped. So no, you got to go back to that same palace. The same palace? Yes. God is sending you back. We sent you there before, but you ran. I sent you there before, but you ran. Sometimes God will make you run back to what you ran away from. Sends you back. He says, what am I going to do when I get back? Because the last time they wanted to terminate me, God says they can't, their termination cannot overthrow my determination. I am determined to get these people out of bondage. There is no one that could terminate that contract. He said, I'm going to send you back, but you got to be willing to go back. I'm asking you today, are you willing to go where God sends you, even though it might not be comfortable? See, not a whole bunch of amens there, not a whole bunch of amens there, because we want stuff to be comfortable. You think you grow in comfortability. No, you grow in discomfort. Discomfort matures you quicker than comfort. Man, oh my gosh. Some of the greatest growth in my life came from the most damaging time to me emotionally. So he tells him, I need you to go back. He gives him the tools to go back. He gives him the equipment to go back. But then Moses starts complaining, saying, God, well, how do I go back? I can't talk. He said, who told you you can't talk? Who created your tongue? In other words, I know what I put in you. I know what potential I put in you to fulfill my will. Stop being intimidated by somebody who you think is going to come back. The Terminator is a big deal. Like, I'll be back. Head for the chopper. All of that, right? All of the Arnold's isms. Hasta la vista, baby. Right? All of the Arnoldisms, right? All of these words that he kept saying, let them know he was coming back. The Terminator never gives up, but you have to be more determined than the Terminator. There has to be a determination in you that pushes you to go beyond your fears. Because the Terminator's biggest thing is intimidation. He looks like he can kill you. But you have to be willing to face your fears, no matter how big they look. Well, Pastor, how do I do that? Moses had to rely on a God that he could not see to handle a problem that he sees daily. That's real faith. To trust God to do something that is unseen, that you've never seen him do before. To have that level of trust that and I love the shoe thing. I'm going to go back to that one day because I like that. I like that a lot. To go back to a place where I can fully immerse myself in God again. How do I get back to where I used to be? I got to make sure there are no shoes blocking my ability to touch holiness again. Whatever those shoes are, I got to be willing to remove them. I got to be like First Lady. I got to be willing to take off my socks and shoes to enjoy the environment, to be able to have a greater level of connection. So God, whatever it is that I've put on that comes between the real connection that I need with you, I remove them right now. I'm reminded of that, man, and I'm done. I'm about to land the plane. I'm reminded of that when a couple weeks ago I cut my finger, cut my pointy fingers, right? I was in my office messing around with my switchblade. Don't come in my office if you ain't ready. I'm just saying. I'm messing around with switchblade. I was like, oh, messing around, opening and closing, and then all of a sudden it said slice. I said, oh, that kind of hurts. So I went to our first aid kit, put a Band-Aid on it, and I was straight, right? I was straight. And I had to do some stuff. That's how I go to my phone. I was like, because something was blocking the contact. And no matter how much movement I was doing, nothing was happening because I really wasn't touching anything. It could sense a real touch and a fake touch. It does not respond unless it's real. God is like that. God knows real worship and he knows what the form looks like. And some of y'all, when you crying and snotting and all that stuff for everybody else, all you doing is that. And nothing is shifting, nothing is sliding, nothing is opening, nothing is closing, because you have not been touching God with real worship. Real prayer. Of course, I can stand up here and I can pray. And God, I believe that you can do miracles. Oh, Lord. And God, I believe. But if I could say that, and God is not impressed by my tone, my tenor, or my tempo. But I could stutter and stammer and have a pure heart. And by the time I get it out, God's already did it. Because my purity and my authenticity is what touches God. So the next time you say God ain't moving for you, check and see if there's anything blocking it. If you've wrapped anything around your fingers that stops you from touching his heart. Take those shoes off. You're standing on holy ground. So he tells them to go back and face the Terminator and let him know that I am sent you. In other words, you're not sent into a battle by yourself. You're not sent to face the Terminator by yourself. You're not sent to face the trials by yourself. You might think you're alone, but you're never alone, because God said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. That I can stand on business when I'm standing on holy ground. So what do we have to remove today? Is it your ego? Because you can't let nobody see you cry. And when you're ready to lay before the altar, you don't want nobody to see you lay before the altar because you got a title. Nothing's moving because you got too big of an ego. Because you're worried of what they'll say when they see you are human. They'll say, you know what they'll say? Wow, even elders and bishops and apostles are real people with real issues that need a real God to solve their real problems. God spoke to Moses, and Moses had the ability to walk into Pharaoh's throne room and come against Pharaoh's throne and show him the God who he served. Pharaoh tried to imitate what was demonstrated, and what God created swallowed up the enemies. His attempt to replicate God's power. Moses goes in there, and the story, that's too long for me to go deep into detail. He gathers the children of Israel after Pharaoh says, I'm going to let the people go, because he was not going to do that in the beginning until God whooped on him. As Moses leaves out, he has one more encounter with the Terminator. The Terminator chases him because he reneges on this promise. He chases him to the edge of the Nile, of the Red Sea, not the Nile, the Red Sea, from the Nile to the Red Sea. Chases him to the Red Sea. God blocks the enemy from, he lets him get close, but he blocks him from touching him. Stop panicking. Stop panicking when they're breathing down your neck. Sometimes the enemy gets close enough to breathe down your neck, but no weapon still. You'll get to the eviction notice and you get to the day of and God still can move. You'll get to the shut off notice and you'll get to the day of and God still can move. Just because the enemy is present doesn't mean that his power is going to be able to overthrow what God is doing. His presence does not negate God's presence. So he gets there, and this is what I love, and I'm done. I'm really landing the plane. Put your seats in the upright position. Here's what I love. God looks at the Red Sea and blows at it. And the winds of God separates the Red Sea right where Moses is standing. And God says, I need your people to hold their peace. Stand still and see my salvation. For the enemy that you see today, the Terminator that you face today, you will never see again. That was the last day the threat of Pharaoh, the power of Pharaoh was ever going to affect Moses and the people of God. In other words, I think we got it wrong. I think I got it wrong. I said that Pharaoh was the Terminator. Wait. In the first film, I thought the Terminator was the villain. But in the subsequent films, I realized that the Terminator was the hero. The real Terminator was the hero. Who's the real Terminator? It's the Terminator of the Terminators. So the Terminator isn't Pharaoh, guys. I realized that, oh my gosh, the Terminator is God, because God will terminate the enemy's contracts. God will terminate the enemy's plans. God will terminate the enemy's power. God will terminate the enemy's influence. He's the Terminator.